Hey everyone, welcome to Past Lives in the Divine. I'm Gina, the host of this podcast, and we are in the second to last episode of this podcast, and I'm so happy you're here. Today, I'm going to share with you a recording from a conversation that I had with my kinship members. Kinship is my annual membership. And we recorded this. I was just a few days back from a weekend up in Ukiah, California. I was at the Plant Sound Immersion Retreat at the beginning of June. And so I had this retreat, and then a few days later I had a kinship meeting, and the meeting was like our discussion meeting of the month. And we meet twice a month. So once is a hypnotic journey, and then the second time is a discussion, whether it's about that hypnotic journey or some other stuff. We usually kind of get into a few different topics, have some laughs together. And so at that gathering over Zoom, I had shared with them the whole story of the weekend. And what I'm sharing with you today is parts of that recording. And in that, I just want you to know that it's just like a really ugly part of myself that revealed itself. And it's something that has been with me since I was a child, I think, and I'm happy to let it go. And what I'm really excited about is I talk a lot. I talk a lot about these experiences, and I'm excited just to put it in a podcast episode so other people can hear about it and I can reference back to it. It's such a long story, and it is a story that includes an entity attachment. So if that's something that's incredibly scary to you, if that's really triggering to you, first and foremost, I want you to know that one of the reasons why it is scary is because you are unaware of your power in that situation and the energetic dynamics, and that's nothing wrong with you. We are told actually the opposite. And so if it's not a story you want to hear, then this ain't the episode for you. And everything turned out fine. Everything turned out great. And I feel so much lighter after releasing it. And I'll share more of that story in the recording. So I just wanted you to know there's some entity conversations. And for me personally, my etiquette, my conduct around the negative energies, the parasitic energies that are around us is that if I'm not clearing it, then I don't want to talk about it. I'm not giving it any of my intention. I'm not giving it any of my attention. And that's just kind of my conduct right now. I'm sure that'll grow and change. But because the story includes a story of an entity that has been transitioned out of this realm, I still, like when I tell the story, I don't necessarily want to present day Gina be talking about that. I just don't want to give it energy, all of that. So I just wanted to put it out there for that reason, so I could reference it, so other people could hear from it. And another thing, it's kind of like hypnosis, you know? A lot of people go into these experiences and they are hard to explain. They are ineffable, as they say. And I think that that is fair and cool and great, but I always want to know more. People don't share much, and that is their prerogative. I'm happy that they draw that boundary, but for me, I always want to know more, and I'm always open to sharing more. And I think that people like me, it's valuable in the world to hear people's kind of in-depth stories if they're willing to go look at these ugly parts of myself and how I have balanced them out. So my hope is that as you listen to this, you are entertained and you have one idea of what could happen in one of these ceremonies. I will say my experience seemed to be, I don't know, I'm just an intense person. So just things seem, you know, some people might call it dramatic, whatever. I feel things very deeply. I like to share. It's cathartic to me. And consistently people tell me that they learn and grow just from my stories, or they learn from my stories and then take steps, you know, whether it's in the similar direction or a direction that's for another person's healing and expansion, whatever. I think sharing stories is very valuable, and I don't think that we have to. I don't think one bad thing about people who have these experiences and never want to share it, that's obviously their prerogative. And let's see, a couple other things about this recording. I took out some I say like a lot. And if I kind of gave up after a while, because here's the thing, I use the word like to say many things, such as, and she said, and I was thinking. I use the word like a lot. I grew up in the 80s and 90s. And if you find that triggering, don't email me. Because if you email me or message me about the likes, I'm only going to think poorly of you. Because I spend hours putting these episodes together. And so if anyone hears the likes, it's me. Because I said it, I edited it, I listened to it again after I edited it. It's a lot. And that's just the way it is. And I'm not going to kill myself about it. I filter myself plenty. So if the word like is triggering to you, this is just a gentle nudge for you anytime you're triggered to look within and see what makes you have such an emotional reaction to a stranger offering free information on the internet that you have free will to engage in or not. Okay. So while I was discussing this, I just can't shake this insecurity that I'm talking about ayahuasca incorrectly or not reverently. And so if that's the way it sounds, like I am incredibly reverent. These ceremonies are incredible and powerful in the plants themselves. I am very reverent of and in deep gratitude of the plants, the people at Plant Sound Immersion who brought this lineage of working with ayahuasca to us in this space, to this country. So I just really want to hit that home. Sometimes I just think my little hayseed from Minnesota, I just don't know all the words all the time. And I think it's probably fine, but I am so reverent of the process and all of that. And I just never want anyone to think that the fact that I'm talking about it or talking about it, in certain ways makes it seem like, I don't know, I'm not reverent enough. And I just want to put that out there. So this was taking place at the beginning of June. It was in Ukiah, California. The organization that put it on is called Plant Sound Immersion. It's linked in the show notes. You can also go to plantsoundimmersion.com. And one of the reasons that I wanted to go to this was because Jude, who's a host on Spirit Speakers podcast, or was a host on Spirit Speakers podcast, she just stepped away from that role. She's a psychic medium. I've been learning from her since she started the podcast 5 years ago. And she was a part of the group putting this on. And she is there for the ceremony and did her own sound healing. And it was incredible. Like the space this group created, the honor and reverence for the lineage and the ancestors. It was incredible. And to give you a little lay of the land before I get into the recording and the story of it. So we were in Ukiah, California at this beautiful property. The property had a main house and a guest house. Both houses were quite large, and the grounds were beautiful. There was a pool, so much vegetation, so many plants, so many flowers. It was really a great space. And where we held ceremony was outdoors under this big tent. And this big tent was kind of situated right beside this guest house. And the part of the guest house that was near this tent had a bathroom and then like a little bedroom. Had a little air conditioning unit in it. So it's just kind of lay of the land. It was super close, but a lot of vegetation. It was beautiful. So we went through the ayahuasca ceremony for 2 days in a row. So the first day it was up early at sunrise, and we spent, the morning going through the ceremony. And then the next day, we started the ceremony about midday and did it all the way through the afternoon. And there was options for other services, other energy healings there. I did a combo healing, which I tell you a little bit about in the recording. Let's see what else. Okay, my intention for the weekend, for the journey, for the experience was really just to super simple, super generic, release become aware of patterns within me that hold me back, that keep me small, that keep me fearful. And like I had mentioned before, and I say it in the recording as well that you're going to hear, but just kind of my last winter, like 23, 24 winter, was just a not great time in my life, honestly. Like everything was going great. In general, everything was going great. But I was just kind of going through a layer of a dark night of the soul. I mean, not totally. It didn't like totally take me out, but I was definitely struggling with some things. And so I wanted to just really dig into that. And I had mentioned something about an entity, and I had been through a series of like meditation and journaling and healing sessions and just my own inward reflection and reflection on my life, who I am, where I've been, how I got here, things I maybe missed along the way. Over the last like 6 months, I just kind of came to this conclusion, like, I think I have an entity. And yeah, I get a little bit more into that, and I got confirmation on it, and I was able to release it and understand, at least conceptually on some level, like how it attached, why it attached, and I've been really upping my spiritual hygiene since then. And just, I came away with it with a real deep, even deeper reverence for the energetics of life, the energy around me and within me, and just life in general. Not only my life, but like other lives. With people in kinship, we've laughed before about how I'm just like so ruthless when it comes to any sort of insect in my house. I'm just like, die, die, die. And it's crazy because even that, I'm having a hard time killing insects after that. And the hard time is coming from this like love and reverence and understanding. It's just a very beautiful thing. So as you'll hear in the story, what I released was something that had been with me for the majority of my life, like almost 40 years. And it was something that I can look back and see that it was definitely, it's never just one thing, but it was definitely an influence that kept me small, always kept me thinking that I was a fuck up, that I was the problem. And to not have that whispering in my ear, essentially, is life-changing. I mean, as you can imagine, it's like I can all of a sudden see all of these opportunities that I didn't think were opportunities before or didn't acknowledge as opportunities before. It was just kind of like, that's for other people, not me. In so many spaces that I would be really good in and happy in and thrive in and even be able to be of service to other people in. So, I mean, of course, too, it's been a few weeks since then, and in some ways, I can't believe it's only been, a little over a month since then. But I don't know, the clarity I've gotten, not having this confusing negativity just always floating around in my brain, creating fear, creating doubt. It's been eye-opening, and it's only been a few weeks, and, a little over a month or whatever. And I already see the shifts and the changes. And I would say like one of the things is like this idea of live events. I love being in front of people, but there was always this thing where it was like, oh, no one will come, no one cares, you're not that great, you'd probably fuck it up anyway. And it would just keep me from even seeing certain things as an opportunity for me. Even though I would see it as an opportunity for other people, I wouldn't see it as an opportunity for me. And I mean, that's such a subtle thing, but it doesn't take much of an imagination to see how that could completely change your life, your relationships, your job, how you feel day to day. And I am feeling that. And it's not like I don't have any problems, but it's just this new reverence for life, new reverence for the energy around me. And again, like spiritual hygiene and just maintaining, a clear internal space, and knowing that if anything gets in the way of that, I'm going to know. And if anything gets in the way of that, if anyone can change it, it's me. And to be really, really diligent about the emotions that I'm feeling, the way I talk to myself, and how just our typical baseline awareness, consciousness / mood can attract things into our life that we want. And of course, like the higher the frequency of the emotions, like all the way up to love, gratitude, joy, the better, the more beautiful our life gets. And I believe that when we get rid of these things that are weighing us down, whether it's through hypnosis or plant medicine or therapy or all the other ways that we can reach, these transcendental states or see parts of ourselves that are invisible to us in regular life, it's just information that we can use to shift our internal landscape. Because first and foremost, like, we deserve that. You have a life on Earth. And it doesn't matter what's going on Earth. And it doesn't matter all the shit you want to change. We have a life on Earth, and we deserve to make the most of it and not feel bad for it. And not see us getting drugged down in the muck and, wearing a badge of honor when we're so stressed out or taking on so much. Honestly, it brings down the vibe of your whole life and the vibe of every room we step into. And not that, I'm very much someone who, over analyzes the vibe of any room and takes on the responsibility of keeping the vibe up. And I need to do less of that. And I do a lot less of that than I used to. And more people need to start stepping in that direction. Realize the vibe you're bringing. Realize how you leave people. Realize how you feel after you leave people. You deserve to feel good after interactions. You deserve to have people in your life who lift you up and support you and inspire you. We all deserve that. And so I think that it just starts with us making a choice the moment we can. Yes, move through the emotion. Yes, feel the grief as it comes up. But the moment you can make a different choice, do so. And maybe that doesn't have a lot of weight for you now, but that idea of a choice and making a choice on how you want to feel is probably the biggest takeaway. Or it's actually not. It's one of the biggest takeaways of this weekend of this ayahuasca ceremony that I participated in. It's one of those experiences. It's just hard to put into words. And I think that that's where the magic is. It's beyond us. So far beyond us. And I think that that's incredible. I've said it so many times on this podcast. I think I say it a lot in kinship. But even if I get to the end of my life, the soul leaves this body and I realize it's nothing, we just go into nothingness, I will still be happy that I chose the magical viewpoint, that I chose whimsy, that I chose potential, that I chose to show up and be the best version of myself, not only for me, but for everybody that I come into contact with. Every single one of us deserves that, I believe. So like I said, that's a recording from a kinship discussion, and I'm going to share that in just a second. But in the meantime, if you have not already, can you help me celebrate this podcast? So I have a link in the show notes, and there's some questions that you can fill out. You don't have to fill them all out to submit the form. And if you scroll all the way down, you can submit your own question. So next week, I'm going to have Kelly Smith on this podcast, and we are going to dive into just her questions about my podcasting for 5 years, the work that I do, transitioning out of the podcast, and we're also going to cover some listener questions too. So if you have a question, you want to ask a question, whether it's about what I'm going to share today or something else that I've shared or something you're curious about, please go to that form and leave a question, and we'll answer all those questions. So in the meantime, yes, this podcast is ending, but again, I am not leaving hypnosis, so don't leave me. I'll be seeing one-on-one clients as usual this fall, so make sure you're on the email list. To be honest, it might be full already. I'm releasing that link very soon to the email list. And who knows, it might be full, but if not, get on that email list. And if you miss the sign up for my one-on-one sessions for fall, I'll be opening up my calendar again for the first part of 2025. And I'll be doing that in December, maybe end of November. So either way, get on that list. You can click the link in the show notes, go to pastlivesandthedivine.com/subscribe. That's another way in. Okay, so another thing, I said it in past podcasts too, but I'm going to be doing live events, and I'm in the very early stages of this. I have some things planned locally. I mentioned before I'm working with someone in LA. We're going to do some events there this fall, still working that out, venues, that sort of thing. So whether you're in Arizona or in Southern California or somewhere else, if you have studio space, healing space, a yoga studio, if you've got a group of 20 or 30 people and a space to fit those people, and you want me to come and lead like a 2-hour workshop on hypnosis, and maybe we journey to a past life, maybe we journey to see our spirit guides, maybe it's something like that but more specific, let me know. Send me an email, Gina with the J, Jina at pastlivesandthedivine.com, and let me know what you're thinking. I would love to take a road trip and bang out a few group live hypnosis situations, and I would love to see more Past Lives in the Divine listeners in front of my face so I can give you a hug if you want one. So if you have any of that, any of those resources, people or space, and you're interested in having me come there and teach to your group, let me know. I would love to do it. Okay, one more thing. You could also interview me on your podcast. So I do not have the time in my schedule to create a podcast anymore. And if you are a podcaster and have your own podcast, you know how much work this is. It doesn't look like a lot of work, but it is. And I would love to help you out. If you want to have a conversation with me on your podcast, if there's a specific topic within hypnosis, past life regression, spirit guides, if there's something specific or general within all of that that you want to talk about, hit me up. Let's have a fun conversation on your podcast. I would love that. So kind of crazy. This is the second to last episode, but again, I'm not going away. Let's stay in contact. Get on the email list. All right, everybody, are you ready? Gather around the fire for a recorded conversation about my ayahuasca journey. We did the ayahuasca ceremony on Saturday and on Sunday. And then on Saturday, it was supposed to be like a lighter day. I mean, I guess it was a lighter day for sure. It was a lighter day for me, even though I came out of Saturday and was like, well, I hope that wasn't my light day. But I am just not someone, I've never, like the 2 times I've had mushrooms, these 2 days that I had ayahuasca, I'm just not someone who gets visuals. And maybe it's where I'm at on my journey, maybe it's coming, but I was kind of hoping for that, like some kind of magical visuals that would just like float me through the 5 hours. And instead, that's not what I got. I mean, a lot of people got that. That's not what I got. So day 1, we started early in the morning at like 6 a.m. And what happened over the course of like 6 hours was they would like open the ceremony, we'd take the daime, the ayahuasca, and then we'd have our journey, and it would start out super quiet. And then eventually they'd start playing music, like they all played music and sang. And it was all in Portuguese. It was beautiful. They're from Brazil. And so you take the first dose, and then I kind of went up and came down, and then took a second dose, and I kind of went up and came down. But sometimes people will take these 2 doses and feel like completely different from dose 1 to dose 2. But on the first day, for me, it was just kind of like a wave. And that really felt like a past life regression, honestly. Like I felt like I was just having hypnosis thoughts. And I, through meditating and intention setting and talking it out with a couple different people, I had kind of like this, like an idea of what I was going in with. An intention statement was basically like, help me release patterns that are like holding me back. And within that, I had, like 20 different things, like this relationship or this kind of situation or this thing that I've been seeing in my life. But that was like the through line that I could find. So really, it was like you take it and you just sit there and you focus on that. Like you focus on your intentions, and it's all very intentional. And I thought it was great because when we were in that and we had taken it, the women a few times would be like, you have to make this journey your own. Like you came here for a reason, so meditate on it, trust what you get. And they were like, if you feel like nothing's happening, go within, focus within, which I thought was so good because the same is true with hypnosis, where a lot of people will be like, I didn't get anything. And then you talk to them a day later and they're like, well, I saw this and I saw that. And it's like, oh, so you were on another planet. Like that seems like a lot to me, But then I thought it was so beautiful because they were like, if you have nothing and you go within and there's nothing that comes up, they were like, we want to gently encourage you to like pray for the world. And so I just loved how it was like, this is a beautiful experience. And if you've got stuff to give, here's a great thing to think about. I loved that so much. The way they kind of straddled the two was really beautiful and just gentle, and not judgmental or whatever. I thought that was great. So I'm going in and it felt a lot like a past life regression. And in the life that I saw was this life as a prisoner. And the prisoner had been getting up to some things, got in prison. And the first like knowing that I have of this prisoner is like he's up against a wall and he's got like this kind of homemade tool of some sort. And he's like has a handle and he's just like, bam, like putting spikes into his back. Like he's so angry at himself and he's like withdrawn, just like 1,000-yard stare to the floor. And he's just like whacking himself. And I swear to God, it was that vision for like 30 solid minutes where I'm just like, what is going on? So then it was like feeling into the feelings of it. This is where I think hypnosis is great because whether you're facilitating it or you're a client, it's really about navigating these unseen realms and trying to get like fruit out of it instead of just like, what the hell is this? So I was like going into the feeling of it and all of that. And it's a super long story that spans like 5 hours. But essentially, I was like, just as me, like holding this prisoner, trying to lay on top of this prisoner, and a big theme for me. Even so, Erica, a kin member, she was there too. So her and I were kind of talking the night before all of this. And it was like another theme that was coming up inside this pattern was like, I need to learn how to soften. Like, I just can't soften and relax. It's so hard for me to do. And I think a lot of us feel that way. Partially our attention spans are less and life is uncomfortable and we have a ton of shit going on, but it's like, it kind of, so I was like softening over this prisoner, softening over this prisoner. And while I was in this, while we're in this, they're also like, not only go within and focus on yourself, but they were like, close your eyes. Like if you're watching other people, you're not going within. And then I don't know how they said it, but they were basically like, and we're all wide open. So if you're sitting here like watching everybody go through this transcendental experience, like you might pick up something or experience something that isn't for you. And so just like go within. So my eyes would like pop open now and then. I mean, sometimes people would like yell or the music would get really, really like boisterous. And it was just beautiful, like the way they kind of moved the energy with the music. And Erica was sitting beside me. We're all under this tent, like in a big circle. And Erica was sitting beside me. And I mean, if you could just see her on these screens. She's very magical. But she, of course, had this traveling altar. And I was joking all weekend because I was like, it's like the Mary Poppins traveling altar, because it'd be like, does anyone have a, and she'd be like, yeah, I do. And she'd like pull something. And I'm like, how big is that case? I mean, like a plastic water bottle. I mean, just stuff that she pulled out. But she had like pictures of ancestors, like women in her ancestral line. And she had showed me them the day before. And two of them really stuck out. one of them we think was Erica in a past life, which she's gonna have to tell us that story because that story alone could take me an hour. And then another one was one of her grandmothers or like a great great grandmother, and her eyes were just so loving. And the way she was kind of like looking off to the side in the picture as they do with like this really wholesome smile. I mean, she just looked like a grandma that, and I've never had this feeling about anybody, but she looked like a grandma that you just want her to grab you and you just want her to like put you in her big boobs, just like you're like, yes, yes, yes. So I just connected with her face, right? So that was like the day before. And then the day of, Erica had them kind of like laid out in front of her. And the picture that was closest to me over there was the grandma and that I had been looking at, the one who I wanted to get a hug from. And so when my eyes would open up, I would try to keep them down, but they would always go to this picture of this woman. And then that was happening. And then simultaneously, I'm like with the prisoner, right? And then all of a sudden, that grandma is in the visual with me. And I'm like, you should be with her. Did I accidentally look at you too much and now you're in my dream? Like you go over there. But she was just like, no, it's fine. Like just the way she was just like, no, it's fine. We're doing this together. And so her and I were trying to help this prisoner soften. And then at this time, one of the helpers around the group patted me on the leg and they were like, can you lay on your back and fucking relax? That's not what she said, but she was like, can you lay on your back? It was something about like being aligned and softening because I was like in the fetal position, like, of course, like, just tense as all get out. And so then that felt so good that I was like, I'm going to do that to the prisoner. So then me and this Erica's grandma like moved the prisoner over and lengthen him out. And then that's essentially, then we called in his mom because I was like, I got to get him up and out of this prison, like at the very least. And when his mom came, then it was kind of like he perked up a little bit. Otherwise, he was just kind of like almost a statue. And that's when the ceremony was over. That's where I was at. It was literally like me, Erica's great great grandma, this man's mom, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna come back and finish this, but I need a break. So, and it was all very, very emotional. That was just like super highlights. But what I said what I said to Erica was, well, before I say that, I'll say, I don't know, you guys have probably heard me talk about, at least on the podcast, this wiener dog that I used to have. He was my first dog that was like mine, and his name was Winnie, and he was a red little dachshund, and we just had such a special connection, and he died super young, and it was very traumatic for me. And I still like, I mean, I love my other dogs that have passed away, but if I'm crying about anyone, it's him. And he has been just such an angel to me. And I believe that like he sent me Alex, and I believe because he passed away like 3 months before I met Alex. And I've had multiple psychics say that he's like waiting by some proverbial astral front door, like protecting me and waiting for me. Like he's going to be one of the people who like helps me cross over. So he's just very special to me. And his name was Winston, but I always called him Winnie. And so during this thing, at one point, I looked at Erica's great great grandma's picture and it had been flipped over. And I was like, she is so psychic. She knew that she was with me and she flipped her over. Whether she knew it or not, she flipped her over. So as we came out and the ceremony ended, I pointed to that flipped over picture and I was like, what's her name? I just spent 4 hours with her. And she's like, her name's Winnie. And I just like, started sobbing. And I was literally like, I'll tell you later. I just like bolted out of there. So that was so magical. And later on, she told me, she was like, it's so crazy. I don't know if you noticed, but that picture was flipped over. And she goes, so it's almost like Winnie was like, I'm over there, I'm not over here. That was pretty cool. So we had lunch, like an hour or a couple hours later, we did some like a breath work session, just really gentle breath work. And then after that, Jude led a sound healing. And through the breath work and the sound healing, I was able to get that guy like up off the bed. And then we got him like standing and walking toward the door of the room. And then Winnie was like, and I was like, okay, sounds good. And then we took like his remains that were still on the bed because it was like this chalky something on the bed. And I like, traveled to his mom's grave and like laid it on the grave. And when I laid it on the grave, I got all these visuals of like him and his mom and how he ended up in prison. And so I used my hypnosis skills and was like, we're going to reframe this. You guys leave instead of having the dad murder the mom. And then it was like I was watching her and him like in this house or kind of kitchen alone and just like happy and singing and dancing. And I don't get clear faces. So I started to get a clear face on him as a baby. And it was me as a baby, which is so crazy because I don't get visuals. And every time, obviously, I've seen a picture of myself as a baby, it's like 2D. So to be like in this kind of 3D experience and be like, whoa, that's me as a baby. And just to watch like the joy, it just really like, I don't know, it like awakened something in me. It was very peaceful and rejuvenating. So that's kind of how the day ended. And yeah, it was great. And yeah, so then the next day, there was an option to do a combo ceremony, which is KAMBO. She took the frog venom and like separated it out. And then they put 3 burns on your leg. Like they take a vine and they light it and they just like maybe, I mean, a little bit bigger than like a pencil. And then they put the venom on there. And then the venom gets into your system and it's not psychedelic, but it's very physical. So I like purged. I swear my face was like having its own muscle spasms. I'm like, I must look like demented right now. But it was just like this purge. And I was kind of on the fence of doing it, but I'm like, I'm here, like, let's just do it, I guess. So it was 30 minutes of that. So I purged a couple times and then afterward went to the bathroom. And it was just like water. Like, oy, oy, oy. So had like, watermelon and just like a lot of hydrating like foods for breakfast. And then a couple hours later, we did the kind of longer or bigger ayahuasca journey. And that one started like 11 or 12 or something like that, like midday. And man, after that combo, I forgot to drink coffee. And if you want to see me at my worst, like not having coffee, I'm just like, oh, like I just love it. Like why do I have to? So I forgot to drink coffee, which is so weird. I feel like that was divine because I would never forget to drink coffee. So as we're sitting down, I just started feeling agitated before we even had the ayahuasca. And I'm like, man, I feel so agitated. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I didn't drink coffee. And I was like, great. Everything was bothering me. Like the sun was bothering me, literally everything, right? So before I even take the ayahuasca, I'm like already annoyed with myself, which is right where I needed to be. uh, so take the ayahuasca and I'm like, it's not working. And that's the thing too. It's like anyone I know who's been like, it's not working, they're like, watch, it will work. Whether it's today or in 6 months, like you will notice a difference from this. So I was just feeling really hot and agitated. And I kind of run hot anyway, but I had someone, like one of the helpers, like put ice in a pitcher and like gave me a towel. So I was like putting ice in there and wringing it out and putting it on my back and putting it all around, just trying to cool off. And I just like, I could not cool off. And I was in the shade, for God's sakes. I could not cool off. So when it came time for the second dose of ayahuasca, I'm like, I mean, anything but this. So yeah, I will take more. Something needs to pluck me from this experience. So yes, more psychedelics, please. So I took it and then sat down, started seeing pinpricks. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure these aren't the visuals I was requesting. This feels more like a faint. And I started like all of a sudden this like panic feeling, like before I would used to have panic attacks would just like come up. And so I got to go to the bathroom and I tried to stand up and I was, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to like crawl to the bathroom in front of 30 people, but like I have to get out of here. And so I started moving and then the helper was like, where do you need to go? I'll go with you. And so she brought me in there and I was in the bathroom alone. All I want to do is lay on this floor. But one of the things I said was, yes, there are a lot of people here. Everyone's energy is important. And if you leave this circle, we worry about you. We spend energy coming to find you. So don't get all wild and go walking on the paths, kind of a safety thing too. As I opened the door, the only thing I could say was like, it's so hot out there. I'm like, I feel like I can't even think when I'm out there. And she like looked at me and later on I found out like she has lifeguard training and whatever. And she was like, how about you lay down on this bed? So it was like this little guest house off the tent with bathroom, couple bedrooms, some air conditioning. So I laid down on this bed. I could see through the window while laying on the bed, like the vegetation right outside the tent. So I could hear the music. I couldn't really see the people, but at least I could hear them. And you guys, being in that air conditioning, feeling that was worse. Like internally for me. I turned on myself. How could you be in here? You're fucking up the whole vibe of the group. P.S. Whose bed is this that you're having this full on like adult tantrum in full sweat, laying in someone's bed? I have a puke bucket beside me. And I kept saying to the woman, because she would leave for like a couple minutes and then come back and check on me. And I'm like, is it okay that I'm here? I just need like 5 more minutes. And she was like, look, the hottest part of the day is going to be over in like an hour. So why don't you just like sit and relax and don't worry about going out there. You're fine. And she's like, I'm going to make you an altar. And I'm like, hell no, I'm going to be in here like 2 more minutes. You're not doing one more thing for me. I can't, no, like I have to get back. I'm fucking this whole thing up for everybody, is what I kept saying. And you guys, she looked at me and this switch flipped in me. In my brain, I was like, she wants me alone. She wants me alone. What are they going to do to me? And then this other part of my brain was like, oh my God, shut up. And so like one part of me is like, this is a movie. I'm gone. Like they're gonna do something to me. But then a bigger part of me was like, that would be wildly out of character for literally every person in this place. I'm going through it. And she was lit a candle, put some sprigs of lavender on the windowsill. And which is pretty cool because later on through conversation, one of the things people said was like, sometimes these external dark energies that are always around want you to be alone. And so for her to put an altar out was like, she's with us in there. This is an extension of out there, which I thought was so cool. And I didn't know that that's what was going on. But so she leaves and again is like, I'll be back in a couple minutes to check on you, but you go through your process. Don't feel like you need to talk to me when I come back, but unless you need something or want to talk to me. So she leaves and I get on the floor right beside the bed and I'm in between the bed and the wall throwing up. And as soon as I got done throwing up, just the grief and the shame of it all was just, it took me and I was sobbing. And then I felt a hand on my back and I was like, I'm not alone. No. It just like kept getting worse, like my own stupid ass hell. It was, and the levity and the ease of it all, the fact that I was in hell was something I was like beating myself up. So, I'm feeling hands on my back and I had thrown up since this woman, her name was Nur, left. And she was like, oh, you're unwell. Are you feeling better now that you did that? And I'm like, of course. I'm like, shirt off, full sweat, puke. I'm sobbing. I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm good. So it's so good over here. And and then I was like, I'm fine. And then her hands were on my shoulders and she goes, because if you're not, we can talk about it. And I looked and it was Jude. And everything got worse. I was like, you can't be in here with me. Like, I'm fucking up this group and now I'm taking you from this group. Absolutely not. And I was like, just go out there. You don't have to be with me right now. Da, da, da. And she was so graceful and so kind and everything I needed in that moment. And she was with me. I mean, I don't know. She could have been with me 15 minutes. It could have been 45. I have no idea. But she was like, "Are you kidding?" And she like lays down on the bed and she's like, looking at me and she's like, "I'm in air conditioning on a bed. I want to be here." And then she was just like, "I don't want to interrupt your process, but like, let me know if you want to talk about something. What are you experiencing right now?" And I was just like, I just have so much shame and I'm fucking even this up, even alone from everybody, and I'm fucking it up. And it was like my fucking ugliest self that normally I would 100% swallow, especially in the face of someone who I've been like listening to her podcast, learning all kinds of things from her for 5 years. And you guys, I mean, ever the podcaster, I guess, I was just like, I wish I could record this conversation and play it over and over. But she was so good. And everything she was saying was exactly what I needed to hear, which is not surprising at all. But in the moment, it was just like boom, 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 like all these light bulbs were going off. And and she goes, "I'm gonna give you some insight." And like, when Jude says that, it's like, yes, I'm listening. And she was like, on our path of ascension, on our path of healing and growth, we come to a gate. And that gate is our own personal hell. And she goes, it doesn't matter what it looks like, what you thought it was going to look like, or what anyone else thinks it should look like. And she goes, when you're at that gate and the worst of you is the loudest, she essentially was just like, this is that gate. And if you can push through, and if you can get beyond this, nothing is going to be as scary. You're going to be a better healer. Like she, saying all those things that I needed to hear. And then she said, because Jude's not the type of person to be like, you have an entity, stop. They're feeding off your emotions. But she said, and sometimes there's those energies around us that want us to feel this way. And so she said, I want you to move through this. I want you to feel what you need to feel. But the moment you can feel something else, I want you to choose that. But only you know when that is. She goes, because there's energies around us that want us to feel this way. And I've heard her say those things before. I've heard, I'm in her intuition course. So like, I literally just listened to a module about it. And when she was saying that to me, I couldn't even put it into words. But what she was saying, you guys, at the end of last summer, I just kind of went through some things that weren't a big deal, but kind of, I just got like a few different situations that just kind of rattled me a little bit. Like, none of this matters. Like, none of it matters. If we all die, no one except the people we live with is going to even think of us in 5 years. Like, none of this matters. And it was like the depressed part of that, not the freedom, expansive part of that. And then it was just kind of like, what is this all for? And like, sure, ascension and growth but why? Like, is life really going to get better? Like, and where am I going? And where did I come from? And like, why did we separate? And just thinking it was all kind of bullshit, and then trying to move forward in certain tricky relationships and just processes and planning things. I was starting to see that, man, when I think about certain things, I get real confused. In relationships, I'm always like, am I the asshole? Did I do something wrong? Should I give that person another chance? Maybe I should let them explain again. Or maybe I didn't explain it well, over explaining. And in that is so much confusion. And I was starting to see that, but in different parts of my life. And I was starting to be like, God, I feel like I have an entity. I feel like I have an entity, but I didn't feel like I knew enough to identify it. I couldn't confirm it. I did a session with Tara Yucatena and she didn't say anything about it. I did a session with Tara Cridlin, kin member Tara, highly recommend. I told her I feel like there's just energy around me that I need to clear. I wasn't like, I think I have an entity, but I just wanted kind of a light second opinion without being like, I think I have an entity. I don't know why I didn't feel like I wanted to say that, probably because of the entity, honestly. Anyway, so as Jude was talking, it was like, I fucking got it. I'm like, this is an entity. And when I feel like this is that entity. And I've been feeling shades of this since I was kindergarten, maybe earlier. And I could go to my childhood home and point to the spot on the driveway where I first heard this voice. And it sounds like my voice, but it's like a real sneer to it. So it just sounds like me trying to get myself in line. And anyway, as she's talking, I'm having like these memories and like, oh my God, this is totally an entity. And so she said, if you want, I can stay here and talk to you. I can leave you through your process, or you can, or, but for sure, we want you to come back out for the close of the ceremony. And in my mind, I'm like, oh my God, yeah, hopefully I'm back there soon. I was like on the 5-minute timer since the moment I got in that bed. and I'm like, oh yeah, for sure. I'm like, you can leave me to my process. Like, thanks so much. And when she left, then I laid in that bed and I stared out that window, and I would feel like waves of shame and grief come up. And normally I would feel that and let it out. But I always wondered, this feels like rumination because it's always there. When do I know I'm letting it go? I'm sure you guys have heard me say that. When do I know I'm letting it go or feeling it appropriately? And when am I ruminating? And it became so clear, like, oh, that rumination a lot of times is confusion from that entity. So it was like I would feel that wave come up, and I would even like get pricks of tears in my eyes, and I would just be like, nope. And I felt like grew 3 inches, and like the water was now below my chin. And 30 seconds later, big wave. And I'm like, nope, I'm not doing that. And then like a minute later, big wave. Nope. And I would just like look at the candle. I'd look at the trees. There was this spider that I was watching on the window. Nope, I'm thinking about something else. I'm not feeling that. You can't have that. This is done, was what was in my head. And after like 3 times, which I guess 3 is like that magic number, when that would come up, it felt like just this old habit that I was just like stepping away from, as opposed to this capital T truth that I was like, I don't think this is true though. And so I felt that shift. And I kept, nope, not going to feel it for like 20 minutes. And then eventually it just kind of left. So then I came out, and I don't know, it was maybe like they were playing like the last 5 songs of the ceremony. And as I sat down, I like locked eyes with Jude, and she like gave me this like beautiful smile. Oh, and also while I was in there, like 5 different people from this organization like checked on me, and the amount of love coming from them. And it was beautiful. After the ceremony, I went over there and was just like, wow, I feel like you gave me a lifetime of education in that time. I'm just like forever grateful. And she goes, let me share a story with you. Do you have a second? She said that when she came out, she said not, and I never said anything about an entity to Jude. And I just said, thank you. What you said to me was really impactful. It was exactly what I needed to hear. I feel like I really moved some things. And she said, let me share the story with you. And she said that when she came out, not long after she came out, the entity came out. And she said he was inconsolable, irate, and she moved him to the light eventually. And she's like, so I want you to know he's gone, but also protect yourself, and just everything that she teaches, and just kind of thought about entities is like, when it's gone, we got to put something else in that place, and understand what made it attached to you, right? Like not that it's your fault, but it's your body. Like, you should probably figure out like why it's attached to you. And that was incredible to get that validation from her. And it really made me, I was already coming out of my dark night of the soul, like, just with spring and stuff like that. And it really just made me like revere life and energy in a way. And I can't say I was like irreverent of it before, but it feels, oh, just like way deeper, and like a knowing. And then just looking back on my intuition and the moves I was making as I was moving through this heavy time last winter, and just the support that I put in place for myself. So it didn't like take me out. It was just something that I would feel, kind of in quiet moments that I was dealing with. And it was incredible. I mean, it was, I can't even put it into words, but yeah, highly recommend 1010. But someone was like, are you going to do another one? And I'm like, I'm sure I will, but my body is saying, no, fuck, no way. But I'm sure I'll be back for more. But it was just, I think there's different ways to get to those transcendent experiences. I think hypnosis is one, plant medicine is one, breath work, dance, drumming, all kinds of things, right? And so it's almost like if we kind of go off our normal beaten path, I think we just kind of, I don't know, discover things in a different way. That's kind of how I chalk that up to it. Yeah. So if you have any questions about it, like you can type it in the chat or WhatsApp if you're listening in the future. I'm happy to share. But Erica has her own, of course, she was like seeing fairies and stuff like that. And I'm like, I hope that shit rubs off on me because I'm over here slaying demons, literally. One of the things that Jude said, every time you go through this, it gets lighter. Every time you go through this, it's less scary. And I honestly feel that way. And they say, like, when you do these ceremonies, it's just the beginning. So, like, the days after, the weeks after, the months after, things really change. There it is. That is our episode for today. As always, take anything that makes your load feel lighter and just leave the rest.